Welcome to Still Growing in Grace. I'm Mike Zanker. Join me and other amazing guests as we explore and discover better, hope-filled perspectives on biblical texts and difficult themes. Prepare to expand your understanding of God's love and amazing grace. Growing in Grace Ministries Canada and Hope Fellowship, as well as Eastside Church, invite you to enjoy today's program as we dig deeper into what it means to be still growing in grace. Good morning and welcome to Still Growing in Grace. It's Wednesday morning and I hope you're starting your day off well. Today is the last episode of the Atonement or At-One-ment series we've been dealing with. We've been covering a lot of topics. You name the types of atonement theories. Why did Jesus have to die? All those kinds of fun topics. And they're critically important. But the last couple ending ones, especially today, we're dealing with a more beautiful perspective, but also how to walk the journey wisely. And there'll be some great tips and thoughts along the way. So I really hope you enjoyed this conversation. Comment and click like if you're enjoying it. But tell us where you're watching from too. That really is encouraging for me because I'm located in Canada, about an hour south of Toronto. That's 2 hours from Niagara Falls. That's 3 hours away from Detroit. So yeah, I would love to hear from you. But anyway, let's get into this because this is a good one. I know you'll enjoy it. Here we go. All right, welcome back to Still Growing in Grace, and it's good to have Richard back with us. We've missed him a couple of weeks, but eager to have him back on board. This atonement theory, atonement topic, at-one-ment topic is a big one, and we've talked about it like that for several weeks. And it's been overlapped with the hell topic, and it's going to overlap with future topics. It just will. It's so interconnected, but we want to have at least one more conversation, and I'd love to pick Richard's thoughts on something that he may have brewing in his mind on this topic. Then the rest of us are just going to jump in and banter and have fun.
I just want to point one thing out, and I apologize for anybody watching. Randy, how do you get your head just to float in the middle of the screen like that? It's just like you have no body.
Sometimes I have to tap the screen to see if you're awake.
That's what it is. Sorry, it's a camouflage shirt. I couldn't see.
Oh, brother. Oh, brother.
You sounded like a Mike joke, actually.
Hey.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. No, go ahead, Richard. Sorry.
I posted something earlier that I copied from somebody else about the two unspoken rules. You know, I don't know if y'all saw it today, but the two unspoken rules. But it was just blanks. There was the number one in it blank.
I think I drive my church nuts because I have like 3 or 4, maybe 5 goofy, funny, like groaners to start my service off almost every week. I just keep finding them. Oh, well.
All right.
So what's with this atonement? So, in fact, Bill, do you want to do a quick summary of what you may remember, and then that'll give Richard a bit of a lead? Or do you remember nothing?
I don't really remember. I know we really broke down penal substitution atonement. We kind of broke it down as a group and kind of dissected it and just how it really isn't representative. And then Fred pulled a bill and actually looked at it from a slightly different angle and said, if we look at it through certain lenses, we can still see some good inside of it, which was really awesome. I think way of at least, I wrote something this morning, believe it or not, and I think
we believe it,
where talking about agreement and unity, and listen, if we can find even just a thread or like a tiny little avenue to find a conversational point inside of even penal substitution and atonement that we can agree upon, it's amazing what that can maybe start to spin. So I thought that was a really insightful little thing that Fred offered. And then we've talked about medic theory some as well, and kind of how that is just a totally different way of looking at it. But we kind of wrapped it up, but in the same way, I think there's always more to explore for sure.
Yeah. All right, Richard.
Well, yeah, I think our challenge is to beautify the gospel. No matter how good any generation may convey it, it's the next generation's baton to beautify it even more. And I think that one of the problems is that the Western theology, especially American evangelicalism, oops, there I go. But I mean, they have really uglified the gospel, even, going back to the 16th and 17th century. I don't know if y'all saw, I shared Jonathan Edwards,
Yes.
Sinners in the Hand of an Angry God the other day. And it is so, I mean, it's obvious to us, it's trash. I mean, it just is. It dishonors the figure of God. And yet that's generally held as the great sermon, the greatest American sermon ever. Shame to our continent. But there is no shame in God. So, I mean, I can just see the Lord's face wincing when he sees like that. When children are being threatened, and Edwards addressed children in that sermon. Children, consider your dire fate. You're like spiders, just hanging on by a web's length over the pits of hell. I mean, the fact that this stuff would get to children's ears and desensitize them and frighten them. I mean, it's criminal. I mean, it's a form of spiritual child abuse, really.
Absolutely, yes.
But we should be. So we come in and we beautify it. And how do we beautify it? Well, I don't know. It's hard for me to share this really in how it's unveiled itself to me. But if I look back at my own relationship with the Lord, I think I've come to a place where I just see, I have this clenched view of God that I think the hammer's ready to fall, that I think he's mad at me, that I think he's unforgiving toward me. And bit by bit, he's there and he knows I feel that way, but bit by bit, he's brought me through stages. And the more that he's brought me and I've seen his kindness and his tenderheartedness, I become unclenched. And the more unclenched I become, the more I see that he was never mad at me to begin with. And I think that is the journey that we all go through. There's something in us in this fractured nature that just wants to accuse and accuse ourselves, accuse others, and to point the finger and blame shifting. I love the passage in Isaiah that says that we'll learn to walk in the Messiah's kingdom when we drop the pointing of the finger, and we're just continually looking to point the finger with stuff. And I remember a couple of weeks ago I posted something on the forgiveness, the 4 stages of forgiveness. And I really don't even remember what they were now, to be honest with you, but it was something along the lines of, I realize you've forgiven me. Then the stage 2 is, well, I realize, you've already forgiven me. And then the third stage is, I realize you were never angry at me to begin with, but it's like, we can't necessarily take all that biscuit at one time. That's too big a biscuit to swallow. So the Lord, gives us a gradual understanding. And he's all the while patiently, tenderly, gently waiting there, understanding our views and our projection of our own anger. And, I posted something the other day, and I posted it many times. So it's about my own situation where, 12 to 15 years ago, I was in a deep sin. I committed a sin, and I was so self-condemning about it that literally, I would go through the day and I would say under my breath 12 to 15 times the day, Lord, please forgive me. Please forgive me. It's like I couldn't say it enough. And I was in torment. And it went on and on for years. And I would say, I'm so sorry, Lord. I'm so sorry, Lord. And then, it went on for, probably 7 years. And I finally realized it hit me one day that I wasn't seeking the Lord's forgiveness. I was seeking the devil's forgiveness, because the devil's forgiveness, he never gives it. The devil never gives you forgiveness. And the Lord showed me that he never withholds it. The Lord never withholds forgiveness, but the devil never gives it. Yeah. So, we languish in our own self-condemnation and our own insecurity. And when I saw that the Lord's way was, not only has he already forgiven me, he forgave me an eternity ago. And then even beyond that, he wasn't even angry at me, an eternity ago. He had a plan for my healing, for my betterment, for his transfusion into my life. And so with atonement theory, I would just say that, my two metaphors, and you know what? I want to give everyone poetic license. Come up with your own atonement theory. I'm not married to any atonement theory, not even my own, because it keeps evolving into better and better and better and better. But my two things are the transfusion idea, that God transfuses, blood is the gift of life, and that the blood of Jesus is about transfusing his curative energies into our being. It's a medicinal model. It's not a forensic model with criminal things going on. That's what forensic means, criminal, having to do with criminal things. I mean, we're not criminals, we're his children. All right. And no matter how sick we've fallen or fractured or whatever, he's there looking to cure us and to better us and to restore us. He's never looking to punish us in the sense that we punish. And then the related idea of that is just the poultice, the healing poultice, where I hadn't heard that word maybe 8 years ago. I'd never heard the word before. But poultice is something that's put over a wound. It can be a plant or bread, all these things you put over, and it drains the poison out. So that whatever happened at the cross, it was a poultice that drew out the toxins, out of our being. But combine that with the blood of gift, where the life of God is transfused into us. I mean, where's the wrath in that? It's not wrath, it's restoration. And I think that that's the heart of Jesus. And he never showed this ugly, vindictive, eye for an eye, hard, torturous, angry, wrathful. I mean, where's this garbage coming from? It's coming from us. It's coming from our own inadequacies and our own insecurities. It's easier for us to get passionate about his anger than it is to get passionate about his love. But that's our problem. It's not the Lord's. So that would just be my 2 cents on the thing. That we need to just put some water, spiritual water, splash some water in our eyes and go, well, who are we dealing with here? We're dealing with somebody that's more gentle, more tender, kinder. On our very best days, he is the exemplary of all that. Yeah. And if we have the right view of God, then we're going to let the garbage drop off of us. These things, the scales off the eyes, are the things that are unworthy of his divine nature.
Otherwise, we continue to live out of the belief we have about God.
Yes. So I mean, and the Lord. So it's all about beauty. It's all about beautifying the Lord. He's already beautiful beyond anything we can think of. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to think of things. We think of he's beyond the best. Exceedingly abundantly above anything we can ask or think. But you know what? I don't mind spending all my energies asking and thinking. Because no matter what I come up with on my best day, my best moment, there's still more to grow into and more to appreciate, more to see. So, that's sort of, to me, beautifying the atonement theory is what I hear y'all been doing. It sounds like what y'all have been doing the last couple of weeks. It's a beautiful thing. And it's not a thing that I remember I wrote a song about the fear of the Lord. And there's a line in the song that says, the fear of the Lord, oh, it's nothing to fear. Perfect love casts all fright from our hearts. So with the idea being that the fear is awe. It's awe. So this whole thing we're doing here is converting the fear of atonement into the awe of atonement. Isn't that good? I mean, I think, geez. So anyhow, those are my 2 cents.
That's cool. Yeah, we've been definitely talking about the better perspective for sure. And the unlearning is probably more difficult, because I think you asked the question, where is this all coming from? I think it's pre-programmed. And that was pre-programmed by somebody else and pre-programmed by somebody else. And we're just, eating spoon-fed cafeteria food that's been pre-prepared, pre-chewed and all. So I'm just tired of pre-chewed food.
Pre-poisoned.
Pre-poisoned, yeah. It's true, right?
Yeah. Growing up in the, I've mentioned before, the independent, premillennial, fundamental, pre-trib Baptist church. Maybe a great way to say that is that I think I was at Camp Brainwash, because it was just this the thing about the atonement that really changed for me, it's one statement that really, because of my background, it was the game changer. And that is a simple statement that it is, God is not mad at me. And Richard was saying, never has been, but God is not mad at me. I did see myself more as a criminal than as a child. So where, Richard, you were talking about saying, I'm sorry, forgive me, through a period of life, I would go to the altar every Sunday night and sometimes Wednesday night, and there beg God's forgiveness for, the sin of not really wanting to be at church and not wanting to listen to those songs and wanting
all the sins you don't remember doing.
Yeah. I wanted to listen to that Carpenter CD, and I knew that was devil's music, all that stuff. But it was a process of learning to trust in the goodness of God and to hope in his goodness and think about his goodness and meditate on his goodness. And I found this, if you allow me, it's brief. It's something from George MacDonald. And it just really spoke to me. I think it's beautiful. And I love MacDonald. I think we are all fans of McDonald's, but he says this: we do not hope half enough. I love that. And because I tell our people, I said, if right now you're beginning to think God's too good to be true, you're on the right track. But he says this: we do not hope half enough. This is too good to believe, we say, but if there be a God, nothing is too good to believe. And if Christ be his son and messenger and image, humanity is divine and God is human. A father's heart, a heart like our own, only infinite in tenderness. That's not how I saw God at all.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Infinite in tenderness will be found at the bottom of things. Oh, I love that.
Wow.
That's deep.
It's beautiful. And the atonement, whatever, I like Richard saying, come up with your own. It just needs to be beautiful, and it needs to magnify the beauty and goodness of God.
Man.
There's another quote by MacDonald that's George MacDonald. In low theologies, hell is invariably the deepest truth, and the love of God is not so deep as hell.
Yeah.
Have y'all seen Oppenheimer?
Not yet. I saw part of it, but I
Yeah.
stopped early because I couldn't finish. Something else happened.
Well, it's interesting that I probably don't know enough about the movie to place it, but I was watching a documentary on it, and there were lines in there about the nuclear bomb being compared to eternal conscious torment, never-ending punishment. That's mentioned a couple of times in the movie. That to believe in the bomb, it had to do with our belief in eternal conscious torment. And I was just thinking, man, that just started percolating, about the whole ugliness of the nuclear bomb and the destructive aspect of it. Like there's something in us masochistically.
Yes.
I don't know, sadistically and masochistically, that wants people to be punished forever and ever and ever. And I'm not saying it's in a sexual sense, but I'm just saying in some sort of self-shaming sense or some sort of cruel sense, that there's just something there. But for that movie to be, and at one point, he says in the movie, he quotes the Bhagavad Gita about I am the, I am the destroyer. I am the killer of worlds, the destroyer of worlds, or something that's out of that. I say, what bizarre thing is this with the bomb? Because I think it's the most hellish thing. I mean, that might be worth talking about someday, but I mean, just,
it's kind of like, it's really a lot like being a Georgia Tech fan or a Falcons fan. It's just punishment upon punishment upon punishment.
That's nothing like being a Leafs fan. Okay.
Hey, there you go.
Oh my goodness. No, I saw a video this week, kind of paralleling this a little bit. I think it's really interesting. Russell Brand, actor, a little bit of an odd dude, but had an interesting video. You can go find it somewhere. And he's talking about his inspiration, that he's a relatively new believer, and he's really kind of turning a corner and discovering this whole world of Christianity. And I think he's kind of ping-ponging around, which is fine. But his inspiration in the person of Paul was a little 30-second video I saw this week that was just really like, and he's just absolutely like just blown away by the story of Paul and this transformation of this guy who was this murderous persecutor to being this ultimate martyr and just proclaimer of forgiveness and mercy and goodness of God. And, you know, if Paul can make that transition, then really anybody can. And I think that's the wonder of atonement, is this isn't a prescription for one type of person or only the select group of people, or, you know, but this is a message for everybody. And once you can get, like you said, Fred, God's not mad at us. God's exactly like Jesus. You know, God wants to heal us and wants the best for us. And you start to believe that all means all, you know, that snowball really starts to roll down the hill fast.
Yeah, I've heard several times in this conversation, I've heard the word beautiful brought up. And I've never thought of atonement as being beautiful. The atonement process and so forth. And when y'all started talking about it, it brought me back to.
It was camouflaged in the topic.
Oh my God.
Another Mike joke, but it brought me back to a message I heard Greg Boyd once, and he talked about worship, and he said basically worship is, you know, when we see the beauty of God and when we react to it. And he talked about once he was somewhere where the Northern Lights were really going crazy, and he said he literally laid in a field and looked up and just, you know, going, ooh, ah, wow, and, you know, just these words coming out of his mouth. And he said, well, that is what worship is, when when we're looking, we see God for who he is, for his beauty, this incredible beauty, and it pulls something out of us. But it's a beautiful is a word that is very rarely used to describe our Father, but it should be the most common word in describing him.
Yeah.
That's where Brad Jersak does a great job of calling it a more beautiful gospel.
Yeah.
You know, by far. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the concept called the Beatific Vision or Beatific Vision. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, which is it's thinking about God in the most beautiful of concepts and means. And I do believe that is probably the most important habit to learn is if we start there with our kind of whatever elements of faith we practice, however that is, if we start with God as being beautiful, and that beauty correlates also to goodness. And I think to your point, Randy, the subversion to that in a really mind-bending, wondrous way is the cross, right?
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Like the cross subverts some of the understandings of beauty that we may want to see. The king on the mountain, the angel in the sky. The beauty might look a little differently than we expected, but what it's revealing, in forgiveness, in healing, in mercy, in grace, that's a level of beauty that's even more transcendent than a lot of the things that we would tangibly reference.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that dovetails into what Fred was saying about hope, about not hoping enough. Hope is always going to be towards the beautiful. You know, why do we need hope if it's already, we can see the beauty of everything right now? But hope is the belief that there's beauty beyond this appearance that we're surrounded in, or what appears to be happening. Hope and beauty are so connected.
I pulled it up. The beatific vision is when God, through transcendent means, opens himself up for people and gives them the capacity to contemplate all God in all his heavenly glory. That's Jesus on the cross, though.
Right. Right.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There's the flip. Like, if we can contemplate God in all his heavenly glory, well, he gave us that image.
And there are a lot of pictures today. Early on, without video, of course, there was paintings and pictures, and so people would, and songs, of course, and poems. So people would express beauty that way. For me now, I have found beauty in oftentimes some of the simplest little videos. And I know there's a lot of crap out there online, but there's also some really beautiful things. The other day, because I love my dog, I watch these dog videos, and guys, I love them. I love them.
Do you do the voiceovers too?
I'm not good at that.
All right.
You know what, guys, this broke my heart. I mean, it really did, because there's this dog tied to a tree with their babies and been left out there for 8 days, I believe, or longer. I don't know how long it was, but as skinny as could be, scared to death, and dying, tied to a tree, dying. And this guy comes up and just slowly and gently sits next to and moves closer and closer and begins to pet. And then he picks up the babies, and to see the mom look at, like, what are you doing with my babies? But he's moving in and rescuing.
Mm-hmm.
It was so beautiful. And I couldn't help it. I'm like, Lord, that's me. I was tied to a tree. I was trapped, and nobody's coming after me. And you did. And you moved right in, and you were gentle, and you let me, I was scared of you, and you moved in and you rescued me. And so to me, I find it in beautiful pictures like that.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I'd like to, and just say something on top of what Bill said.
Wrap it up, Richard. You can wrap this up.
Okay. Well, the cross appears to be on its surface ugly, but yet the beauty of it, it's not just that it happened and that he allowed it to happen for our benefit, but that the next morning, 3 days later, he resurrects.
What?
The beauty of the cross is the resurrection. That's the beauty manifest. The cross is the beauty, of the degradation, of the humility. And I love the whole humility of the cross. I mean, that's just incredible. That you talk about just humility, the beauty of humility, that the Lord of creation, would allow himself. No man took his life from him. He laid it down.
Right.
And the humility of that, but then the coming forth out of the grave. And then followed up with Pentecost 50 days later, where he now indwells us. That same that quickening resurrection energy. That whole thing is the atonement. That began in the dark, but yet the more that it blossomed, the more beautiful it became, until the very thing, the life of God is now in us. I mean, what a great fulfillment of beauty that was.
So we're going to wrap up with this, because we're done. Then if the atonement mindset that we've been given does not reflect the beauty of the love of God, there's more to learn. It's incomplete. So, all right. Thank you for joining us for this conversation. We'll see you back next time for another great and deep chat. Thank you. All right. I hope you enjoyed not only today's episode, but the entire series. So we have 9 conversations about this important topic of atonement. Even if you never thought it was an important one, by listening, you're going to realize, I didn't know I already had thoughts on this topic without labeling it under the umbrella of atonement. Well, looking forward to next week. We begin a new series on deconstruction and the renovation of our faith and finding healthy ways to walk through it and tackle really difficult topics. So I'm looking forward to that one. And sorry, Byron, it's over already. But we've got 9. You can go back and watch all the rest. And it'll be good. All right, until next week, we'll catch you next time. Thank you for watching, and I hope this was a very encouraging conversation for you. If you've enjoyed it, support it. Thanks. See ya. Join me next time on Still Growing in Grace. Enjoy previous episodes by downloading our podcast at growingingrace.ca. If this show's been an encouragement to you, consider making a donation today. For our Canadian link, visit growingingrace.ca, and for our USA link, visit eschurch.com. Your donation will help us continue spreading really good news. Thank you again for tuning in to Still Growing in Grace.